Ephesians 5 and basically said I would commit my life to you and die for you.
Being mindful of like bringing these moments to God and like actively like praying.
Now we living together and it's all this stuff popping up that is like, oh, this is when the classic, she changed. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bolden Matrimony. I am Robert Bolden. This is my wife,
Corey Bolden.
I feel like it's something missing there. We go to the drawing board and figure out like a tagline so y'all know who we talking to and stuff like that.
Well, a rough tagline is that we are two people living and loving boldly in Christ. And so that's what we have on our
living and
on
loving
our banner.
boldly in Christ. Yeah.
But we would love we can open it up. What do y'all think?
Yeah, we're taking suggestions.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that for those who are new and watching new to watching our content, we just want to make sure that we kind of have something that brings people up to speed on what our content is
very
about.
Quickly.
So yeah. So they know, okay, this is what I'm in for.
That you clicked on the right video.
Yeah.
Well, if you're here today, you did click on the right video, so you can count on that. And we
subscribe.
Oh yeah, just make sure to subscribe. We mentioned in the last episode 10%. So we're trying to increase that, get to those 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
So if you would be so kind, if you enjoy it, just hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
So the topic today, in our previous episode, we talked about money and the idea of the 50-50 element as it pertains to money. This will sort of be an extension of that in the ballpark, but not exactly that. And what we want to talk about today is how to learning how to biblically combine your finances with your spouse. Now, let me just say, as someone who has worked in the financial services industry for over 5 years, this is hard for any financial advisor because this isn't just a spreadsheet and budget type of thing. This is a psychology thing. Like you're bringing two totally separate human beings who grew up under two totally different households and headship, and they have their own experiences with money. They've had their own challenges with money. They've seen their parents grow up and deal with money, which can be positive and negative. And then what you do is when you decide to get married, you bring two people with totally different perspectives and say, figure it out.
Yeah.
So we're going to deal with that aspect, more of the psychology of it and how this actually works. Because from my perspective, from what I just described, there's no way to do it if you're not dependent on God. So my first suggestion is to go into the conversation very prayerfully. Go into the conversation very prayerfully, hoping and knowing and trusting that you guys will find common ground to make sure that you end up on the same page. So for us, I think it took a lot of that for sure because we talked a little bit about it in our previous video, like I said, but today we'll get into the specifics of how we kind of structure things. So to start out, how do we structure our finances before we got engaged? What was that process like from your remembrance?
Well, before we got engaged, we were living in two separate households. So we had, we touched on this. We had our own systems. Like for me, I had a bill account that I had set up, and I had set up all my bills on auto pay. So I had all my bills. Whenever I get paid, I will put that total amount that my bills, added up to, all my expenses and things, and put it in that account, and it was just coming out. And I knew when all of it was happening, and I was happy with that. It worked for me. You had your own system of doing things. And so before we got engaged, we were like both had our own systems. So
Yeah. So I was happy that you were okay and had practiced automation.
yeah.
It's a great thing because it takes the responsibility off of you and just lets the thing run itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good thing. We did prior to getting engaged. Like she said, we operated separately. So I did a similar thing, not exact. I had my fixed expenses coming out of kind of the same account. I didn't itemize them. I didn't have like a bill account
Mm-hmm.
and a separate spending account. Everything kind of came out of that pot. Then I had my own savings account and own investments accounts and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I found was when we did get engaged, one of the first things that we did, I think it was the first week that we got engaged when we start, because the next day we start planning for like venues and how we were going to map everything out. But what we did was go open up accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point during the engagement, we didn't have a joint spend account, but we did have a joint savings account, which was meant to put X amount of dollars from each of our checks to go toward the pot of what we would need to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it pretty clear, and we did add the spreadsheet element to say that, okay, our venue is expected to be paid on this date. Our vendors are expected to be paid on this date.
This is how much.
This is how much, and this is how much we need to save to hit all of these dates throughout the year. So we had 11 months to put all of this together. And just the first step for us together, just being engaged, was a simple savings account that we put both of our names on.
Right.
So that was cool for me to see, just because again it made it very clear. Everything was transparent. We both had like cards for the account, and that was like our first step in like being like, oh, this is pretty cool.
That becoming one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Journey.
Yep. So after that, during the process of kind of committing during the engagement, we hit all our goals, which is great. Prior to the wedding, we made some commitments during that time as we were preparing as well. One of those commitments was that we would not go into debt specifically over the wedding. We did want to have a wedding that was beautiful and people enjoyed, and we could enjoy and look back and see beautiful pictures and all of that, and the photography and videography. That was amazing, but we didn't want to go over the threshold of what was reasonable within our budget.
Yeah.
So we did solidify a budget, and we committed to not going into debt, and that turned out to be true.
Yeah, and we also talked about that and how God's provision was very evident through that process, and people donating florals and like were florists and gifts and soups and so
and that came a little bit later too, because I don't know exactly when, but as far as the commitment, we even talked about at the beginning that we kind of going into this on our own. We're not expecting anybody, parents, family, or anything. They did, but we didn't have the expectation that they would contribute anything. So we're going to take the lion's share of everything, and that be the expectation. And if somebody helps out, praise be to God. So from that mindset, what we did find out, we got tremendously blessed. And I don't know what video it was, but we talked about that, where my homeboy, my best man, handled my tux. You got your veil for free. They paid for our florist. Like, there were a ton of things that kind of came up, parents contributing. It was amazing. And that just basically kept more money in our pocket, or just basically expedite everything. So that was amazing. We didn't have to go into debt, and we stayed true to that. And then also, when we actually got to the wedding's paid for. We came into the situation with our own sort of things going on. For my business, I had built up like about 5,000 in credit cards. You had like 10 or something like that. And
so
these
had
were
cards previously.
Yeah.
And those things that we were putting on hold and just paying the minimum amount
during the time
because all of our savings were being, generated towards the wedding. So we did come into our marriage with debt, but it wasn't from the wedding.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yep. So at least we committed to that. But our next commitment, a lot of commitments here. Our next commitment outside of that was once the wedding is over, and we'll have to pay for the honeymoon and money that we don't have. So that was something that we had to account for. That next commitment was ridding the debt that we had. And I just want to go through a couple numbers because I'm proud. I think this is a moment to, Terry, if you could find like the little claps in the, yeah. If you can find that in the background, I'm proud of this because this is very cool. So as we were preparing for getting married, when we got married, I moved into this space, and we decided even prior to like the marriage or the wedding, we start selling furniture. We got rid of some things to generate.
Got rid of all of your furniture.
Yeah, I sold all my furniture, which helped foot the bill. We got rid of a bunch of stuff at your house, at your current house, which helped foot the bill. And then we bought some new things because, like, one of the big things, Corey said, like, I don't want to sleep in an undefiled bed.
So I sold my bed. Oh, my gosh. I sold my bed, which had been my bed from childhood. And we were like, I was like, the
bed got to be pure.
We got to have a nice, pure, undefiled marriage bed. So we got a new bed, mattress, and it was king size because my husband is
I'm a
very
lengthy man. Yeah.
And we got a new couch, and I think that was about it.
Yeah. So just to add some of these things up. So we've been married how long now?
5 months.
5 months. So that's 5 months today that we're recording. When you see this, I don't know how long it'll be. But we paid for a couch. Was about $2,000. Bed frame $1,400. Bed mattress $2,300. I had $5,000 of my own debt. Corey had $10,000 of her own debt. So we had about $21K in the hole prior to the wedding. Wedding is paid for. That's just our prior engagements and then stuff that we have to live with. So we 5-6 months in. All of that is done.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all of that is done. So I think that's a cool moment. Like when you for us, for me, even before meeting you and then meeting you just kind of confirmed it. It says, what is it, Habakkuk? Write the vision, make it plain. So with the financial planning, I think a lot of times, going back to the psychology thing, a lot of times we don't follow through with things because we can't tangibly see the thing. We can't necessarily grab the thing or see how much value is going to add to our lives 10 years from now. And we therefore stay in some of the same patterns that we've perpetually done year by year. So for us to like write these things down, take a look at our financial plan, and to stay accountable in these things, because again, going back to what we said in the beginning, this is a topic that is highly emotional. It's not always logical. And like at your core, we talked about a couple episodes ago, like you're a spender. Like you would much rather spend. I'm a saver by habit. And we had to kind of work through these things to make sure that we were on the same page. So I'm gonna just stop there. How did you like feel in that whole process? Was that a big change for you? Was that like something that you kind of struggled with? Like Rob is making us not buy stuff and we can't go out. Like what did you? Because there were some sacrifices that we had.
But I think we learned. I built that muscle was built during the wedding planning, process, because when you have a defined goal, again, our favorite quote, where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable.
We just gonna say that in every episode.
When you know the purpose of, and the vision of what you're working toward, then that makes it easier to kind of get in line and like follow the plan. For sure. So honestly, like I used to be kind of a shopaholic, and I can't even remember the last time I bought something new for myself and it also teaches you, it reinforces contentment. Like I don't need these things. Like I can put together a fly outfit with what I have in my closet. Now, here and there I may be like, okay, I do need a pair of, this wash of jeans or whatever. But or these types of shoes. But you know, ultimately, it's like I have what I need. That's not really. It helps you put things into perspective and prioritize. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Um,
And I think that's what a renewed mind is. Like
mhm.
all of us think one way before, and again, these might not be true. We kind of cling to what we know only because we're ignorant of what doesn't exist or what does exist outside of
Mhm.
that. Um, but for us, like if you grew up in a time when the stock market was trash, you inherently believe that the stock market is bad, right?
Mhm.
So we have to sort of unlearn a lot of these things in order to learn a new way of doing things. And I
Right.
think that's what you and I were. Did I say that right? You and I.
Yes.
Yeah, you and I were doing during that whole process.
Mhm.
So we talked about the account. So now we said from engagement, we just did the savings account. When we got married, we opened up a couple more accounts. We had a joint savings, which was from the engagement. We had a spend account that we both used to pay for like gas in
Groceries,
the cars,
gas,
gas.
and date
I say
nights.
gas, date nights, groceries,
Yeah.
and whatever else. I don't know.
Yeah, groceries, gas, and date like
Yeah,
just
kind of like
hanging
the
out together.
necessities stuff that we do, and then dates. And
Yeah.
then we have a joint bill account, which I just put X amount of dollars into every month. We track that and kind of have like a meeting every 2 weeks ish to just make sure everything is flowing fine, check in, see how everything is going.
So why don't we go through like that? Like how do we? I think I think it'll be good to like holistically say, okay, so we paid off this debt. We still have some debt left
Mm.
to pay. Like, what's our plan? Like, what
Yeah,
does
yeah.
that whole like financial plan look like? You
Hmm.
know, in terms of like what we're contributing, what we're focusing on, like that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah. So right now, because what we had to do was open up a separate card. We didn't want to use a lot of cash in Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
so we got a card and we used that to fund our trip to
Our
Thailand.
travel card, yep.
Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a travel card that now, out of all of the debt that we have paid off, I think there are two that are remaining, which is our
Mm-hmm.
honeymoon and then one
Yeah,
other like
yeah,
bank of it's a smaller
yeah,
balance or whatever. It'll be done like in a month.
yeah,
So once these two are done, man,
yeah.
like from all the stuff that we paid off, like if you look at the numbers, that's like $1,200 or so that's going back into the pot. We just wanted to make sure, in these two cars, we can get rid of that. We get our $1,000 or so back, and then we can really begin to save and invest.
Now let's talk about how we did this. Like, what was the process of like how we paid off this debt? Like, I think that's the main kind of thing we should like share.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how we did it. So I think one of our main focuses was getting more cash flow, like getting rid of things that were cutting into our cash flow. So you listed out like the couch, the mattress, the bed frame, the two cards that we both came in with balances on, and you pulled out the spreadsheet. We saw how much we were paying and like the minimum payments, but then also we were like, okay, this is how much extra we have that we can put towards the cards, but like, okay, which one? It wasn't
Oh
even
yeah, I
like
know
which
what you're
one
saying.
has the greatest percentage. It was like which one has the biggest minimum payment,
Yeah.
and like so we can, as we're paying that card off, we get that cash.
Mm-hmm.
We increase our cash flow.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
So
good point
yeah,
because out of the things that we listed, they're not all credit cards. So some are considered like
installments.
just installment loan for
Yeah,
whatever percentage. Some didn't have a percentage at all,
yeah.
but the payments are much higher.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, that would be something that we would discuss every 2 weeks after we've paid something off. All right, out of the list of things that need to be paid off next, what makes the most sense for what we have to
Mm-hmm.
attack next so that we can keep from paying a bunch of interest on stuff or free up more cash flow in the plan each month.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, for the both of us, when we had those conversations, we started to trend towards paying off the furniture first because it was only a few installments. The payments for those installments were much higher, and therefore we had more money from those installments because they were paid off to put into some of the credit card stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we worked through the decision of getting there.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it paid off big time for sure.
Yeah, it did. And yeah, so we're continuing in that rhythm of like, okay, what's the next thing we need to tackle? You know, what's the installment? Like we're the Amex, you know. So paying on that, and once that's paid off, then you know you just kind of put that extra money into.
They call it like the debt snowball.
Yeah,
if you're a
debt
Dave
snowball.
Ramsey fan,
Yeah.
I'm an advocate. I think his stuff is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything, but I think it's a great start.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does a good job teaching some of the same stuff.
Yeah. So that's pretty much our kind of method. And then we talked about like our assignments for, you know, my income. You touched on how when you get paid, you put whatever money is needed for the bill to cover the bills for that portion of the, you know, month. You put that in there, and then now at one point you were putting everything in there. Now it's like we have more, you know, so you can even.
Oh, there's a little more flexibility there.
There's more flexibility that we can move some money around. For me, my money assignment is like putting money in the joint spending account, making sure like our secondary needs or kind of like the groceries.
It's more like additions,
the necessities,
dates, and well, we need like gas in the car and stuff like that. Yeah.
Gas and groceries. Making sure the joint spending account is funded. So that's mine. And then also paying, you know, contributing towards the debt.
Yeah.
And then once the debt is paid off, then it'll switch to savings and investments.
Yeah.
So this system has really, really like worked very well for us. And once we locked that in, because we talked in a previous video about how it took some iterations for us to get to that point,
for sure. Yep.
get to this point. So we're really happy with it, and it's been very fruitful for us. So,
100%. But yeah, that I think it's a good strategy. The Proverbs 22:7 is the one that says that the borrower is servant to the lender. So right away, like I believe, just get rid of the debt, and after we pay off these 2 cards, we'll keep you guys posted with another update on those.
Yeah.
But then you know it's just student loans and the mortgage.
Yeah.
So like you can see the light in the way. So like once that cash flow is back, I feel like the floodgates open and we can do so many things to put ourselves in position, because there's always going to be a stock market crash or a COVID or all of these opportunities that pop up where, again, like based on your experiences, there are people who saw the '08 crisis and they came up out of that because they were prepared and had a plan, whereas other people saw it from a standpoint of being like the victim, and things were horrible during that time. So you do have a right to choose here, and I think by having a plan in the way that we're attacking it, you know, aligns you to be able to do that. So 100%. I'm excited for all that we gonna be able to do, and I think it'll be a lot of other good teachings that come from it. So I'm excited about that.
Same.
Indeed. So it's always good for me, at least. Like, well, let me ask you this before we close. Do you have any reservations now about talking about money? Like, what was that difference like before? Like, even when we just started dating, in comparison to how you feel about it now? Was there a difference, and how did it change?
That's a good question. When I say that I'm still a spender at my core, it's more so the desire has shifted from buying things for myself, like buying things just to have more stuff, to like buying things that are going to like add value or make a difference. Like for example, the other day I went out with my cousin and my grandmother, and we have one of the credit cards that has a low balance, but we still need to pay off. I had that in my purse, and like my main whenever I'm going out with someone, like my first instinct is like I just want to pay, like I just want to like do something for this person, or so I gave in to that impulse and like you know spent money that we like granted the bill was not like ridiculous or anything. It was very,
these are principles,
but I bought. I was like, oh, I got it. So I covered lunch, and then I came home and I gave you the credit card.
It's like I got something for you.
I was like, I have something. I got something to give you. You're like, what's this for? And I'm like, it's so the next time I go to lunch with with my grandmother and cousin, I'm not pulling the credit card out to pay for lunch. So, all that to say, I'm more confident. I'm okay with being transparent about those things. Mm-hmm. Whereas at one point, I may buy something and feel guilty about it and then just kind of wallow up in my little hole of shame and like, kind of condemn myself.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And that's a good thing. And I think that's a very good takeaway for those who are listening and having to go through this. Like I have an advantage because like I deal with money daily. But it's still a challenge because this is psychological. It's not always just data. So for you and I always want you to feel safe, and you are safe telling me about anything that you want to spend money on. Mm-hmm. I just want you to know that.
Yeah.
This is a safe place, right? So with that being said, the truth and reality of the situation is we really didn't even have to use the credit card. Like we had money in the budget to be able to cover it. And that's not to say that it's going to be every time. There are some times where you're just going to have to flat out say no. Mm-hmm. So it's just, rewiring the way that we think about things rather than pulling out the credit card and saying that we got, X amount of dollars on the credit card and it's fitting for right now. We work on principles. If it doesn't align with the principle or the value, then we just can't do it.
Right.
So it's all of these that happen, like they happen, and like we're gonna spend money, and like that's normal. Everybody's gonna spend money, but it should be purposeful. It should be aligned with the values that you've established for your home. And our home is different from your home, just the same as anybody else. Mm-hmm. But it's up to that couple and that person to really identify and establish themselves and what those are, and basically don't waver. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's a great example of how these things can work out. But again, if you want to be married, you got to communicate.
Yeah.
Like talk through this stuff.
Through the hard things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's good. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
Nope. I think we covered it.
Very good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you had something to take away or have questions or different topics that you'd like to see the beautiful Corey and Robert discuss, let us know in the comments. And until then, we will see you next time. Peace.